and welcome to the Mime Radio Show podcast. I'm Karen Hoyer.
I'm James Donlin. Hey, Karen, this is season 4. What shall we do with the crazy mime? What shall we do with the drunken clowns? What shall we do with the crazy mimes early in the morning? Ow!
James.
Yeah. Season 4.
Pretty awesome, James.
I know. It's amazing how many mimes like to talk, and clowns. You know, one is the same as the mime is a clown is a mime.
But here we are. It's January 2023, and we're starting our 4th season.
That's right.
All with the help of
a very interesting, a very talented, a very world-traveled guest.
Yeah. Wait. Say thank you to Michael Diaz.
Well, that's who I was talking about.
Okay.
A very well-traveled guest. The man behind the black curtain, behind our images, Michael Diaz, our producer, who controls everything, controls our destiny, and so forth.
Yes, thank you,
Besides Michael, today we have, as I check my notes, we have an exciting guest, a very talented guest, a world-traveled guest, Hilary Chaplain. And I know a lot of you have heard of Hilary or have seen Hilary's work, and we're very excited to have her here today. So let me read something about her before we welcome her in. Are you ready, Karen?
Sure.
Okay, let me put my spectacles on. By the age of 10, Hilary knew she was destined for the stage. Her first show outside of elementary school was an avant-garde experimental theater piece. So when she encountered Tony Montanaro in the late 70s, she was already primed. Her career has included legitimate theater, in quotations, mime, clown, physical theater, puppetry, and a sweet stint on Broadway in The Tempest with Patrick Stewart, directed by George C. Wolfe, and also bits and pieces of film and TV. She studied off and on with Tony Montanaro at the Celebration Barn, which is in Maine, in Paris with various mime teachers, and with numerous master clowns throughout her career. Her solo show, A Life in Her Day, has taken her to over 20 countries, and her most recent piece, The Last Rat of Theresienstadt. I have a problem with accents. I won't deny it. But The Last Rat of Theresienstadt, a play with puppetry, projections, and music, is currently being booked for performances. She continues to work with the New York Goofs, not so often these days for obvious reasons in our world, and was a hospital clown for the Big Apple Circus hospital clown program for 24 years. She teaches clown, physical comedy, and hospital clown, and her background in mime is a core part of who she is as a performer and teacher. And with that very rough introduction by James Donlin, let's welcome in Hilary Chaplain.
Hello, Hilary.
I'm not drunk.
We're so happy you could make it today, Hilary. Everybody's having problems with weather and parking and pandemics and all kinds of things these days.
Yep, but here I am. Here we are. Happy to be here.
Hilary, it's been really wonderful knowing you over the years. I met you first with Big Apple Circus Clown Care, where you were one of our teachers. And then I'm on your email list and I get notices of all the different travels and the classes that you've been teaching. So it's delightful to have you here on our show.
Thank you. Thanks.
So we always like to start with this question, and it has to do with how the actor prepares right in the very minute, right before they step on stage. And in all the many places where you've performed, what is it that goes through your mind, or what do you use as a preparation right before you step out on stage to perform?
Well, for the first 8 years or so when I moved to New York, I studied with a woman named Carol Fox Prescott. I was taking acting class with her, and with her, it was all about the breath. And she called being on your breath. For me, it meant being aware of your impulses, which was something that was so primary with Tony Montanaro as well, being able to really feel what your impulse is in the moment. So I use what she taught us, which was take a breath, find the joy of your own. I can't remember the middle one. What happened to me? But I take a breath and I just seek the joy of my own experience and step on stage and see what happens today.
Do you have is there any kind of system or process that's vocal or physical that you might do?
Oh,
You
yeah,
don't have to tell us much about that, but is there some kind of preparation other than the self
absolutely.
trance? Yeah.
It depends on what I'm doing. If I'm doing a life in her day, it's mostly a physical warm up, and I'll include some vocal. If I'm doing the last Rat and Theresienstadt, I do a lot of vocal work because I'm singing in that show,
Yeah, yeah.
and physical. And if I'm doing my short numbers, some of them I've been doing for so long, I have to admit that I don't warm up a whole lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I understand. I think the
And do the piece. Others that are newer, I still get, in fact, I've got a new piece and I get so nervous before I do it. So that's where I just try to say, I'm just going to have a good time. I'm going to seek my own joy out there and have the best time I can have.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I
So
imagine it'll be nice for other artists to hear that not even all your long career, you still get those nerves.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah. In fact, yeah. Yeah, it's happened a few times recently because this is such a new piece and because there aren't that many opportunities to perform it. So in between, I start wondering if it's really anything. I stand there off stage and go, "Oh my God, I'm not doing anything. I'm going to walk on stage and I have nothing." What's going
yeah,
to
it's interesting because in one way you could say the more you know, the less you know, in a sense, you know. So I think with people who are really experienced, there is that sense of the unknown or failure that could creep in, which is really crazy because you would expect people with lots of experience to just kind of like, I'm here and I'm going to go on. But I think the more you know, the more you're aware of what can happen in all directions. So that can create a sort of a nervous sense, I think, which is a good thing, I think. Yeah.
Well, the other thing about this new little number is that it's less specific than a lot of what I do. Most of what I do is very rehearsed and very, very particular moment to moment, even with room for improvisation. This piece has a lot more improvisation. So
Yeah.
that's scary.
You
I
know,
mean,
and audiences, I think audiences have changed. Those of us who have been doing this for many decades, the audiences are different now in some ways, I think. But I'm wondering what your feeling is about what that audience represents, not in terms of what age they are or where they come from in the world, but as a body of energy. Do you have any kind of feeling about what that other is that you're stepping in front of that group of people that's going to witness what you're going to do? Do you have any sense about that, or maybe how that's changed? Oh, look who's here!
Lovely cat.
Yeah, for those of you that are not looking at this, there's a wonderful black cat with a white chin and nose that just appeared.
often, but here he is.
That must be your muse, maybe. I don't know.
It was pretty
Yeah.
sweet for a couple years. So the audience, I realize more and more that the audience is me, in a sense, in the sense that we're all just people, and we all want to be touched in our hearts. We all want to be moved. We all want to be emotionally involved when we're in an audience with what's going on stage. And I think that the audience is an kind of an open entity that's just waiting to get involved with me and what's going on stage.
Yeah, I would think so, especially today after the pandemic when so many people have been away. If you're in the theater at all as an audience member, I think you're thirsty and hungry to
Mhm.
to communicate and to feel the ritual with the performer.
Yeah.
Do you think audiences have changed? I feel they've changed since 40 years ago. Do you have any feelings about that? Or are people people?
The audiences certainly, for the most part, are older because
Yeah.
people don't come out to the theater as much.
What about attention span? I think there's less
Oh
attention
my
span.
God. My attention span, absolutely. We used to go see 2.5, 3 hour shows that have two
Right.
intermissions. And now, even on Broadway, there are shows that barely last over an hour. And it used to be that for a solo show, you wanted it to be long enough for there to be an intermission. And
Yeah.
now, an hour, hour and 10, that's plenty.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize that on
Yeah.
Broadway when they were doing shows with
Hil-
is that because of television, you think? Over the years that's kind of programmed an audience to expect a certain amount of work,
I don't know if it's TV so much as the internet. I think it's really
Yeah,
changed the internet. We're so bombarded with images and things changing.
right.
So,
Mhm.
if you do a promo video, it has to be under a minute. People just aren't going to watch more than a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I the averages of how long people watch my videos, and it's quite short.
Yeah, yeah.
And good too. I don't know.
Hilary, what is your relationship to the audience? So in the times that I've seen you perform, you definitely have an open connecting, like in the clown world, and the mime world, where we're reacting to what the audience is giving us. And is that true in all of your work? Like, for instance, in the Last Rat of Theresienstadt, does that still like that, or do you have a fourth wall?
For the most part, they are there. It's like in some of the Last Rat, the music is all performative, as though there is an audience there, except for one piece, which is about peeling potatoes in the kitchen in Theresienstadt. Theresienstadt was a ghetto town that was used as a concentration camp during World War II in Czechoslovakia. So in that one song, she's just singing out. But otherwise, they're all performative. And then in the other scenes, there's an awareness that there is an audience because both the rat and I have takes to the audience. So they're kind of our confidant because we are telling them the story.
Who
And in this new piece, you're saying that it's even more connection to the audience, more improvisational.
No, it's not. It's less, but there are takes asides to the audience, and there is the awareness. Both the rat, who happens to be right here, the rat and I both have an awareness that there is an audience out there.
I haven't seen the show. Is that rat? Is the operator you or another person, or is the operator seen or is disguised? What's the technique you use?
I am not the operator. I have two puppeteers who are, well, there are three people who play the two roles, but two puppeteers who developed it, who are amazingly talented, and they are seen. Their faces are seen, and they're all in black with black gloves and black hats, but you see their faces and you see them speak. And it's really important that you do, for me, it's really important that you see the puppeteers.
Yeah. You have these different facets. In your bio, it was mentioning many different aspects of physical theater performance. How did you become interested in, let's say, puppetry, or is it natural as a mover and an actor to become, enamored of other forms of physical theater? Yeah.
Just tell us a little bit about how you actually chose this field in any way, this physical theater, clown, mime, puppetry. How did you get started?
Well, so what you said in your little intro, when I was in 5th grade, my mom took me to audition for a show. It was called The Three Little Mermaids, and it was this couple who did this kind of crazy avant-garde theater, nothing like I'd ever seen at the age of 10. And there was a lot of movement in it. There was gauzy fabric, and we were rocks, and then we were the waves and the water. And it was about the Little Mermaid, but it was the Three Little Mermaids, and I was cast as the third mermaid. So there was spoken word. It was very prosaic, and my mother said that I sounded like I knew what I was saying, which was cool. But it was so physical and so beautiful to me that that just gave me a taste of what that was. And in high school, I took a mime class with Trent Arterbury.
Oh yeah.
In the summer, one summer, he was with Kenyon Martin's National Mime Theater. So I would drive to Boston. Trent said, Hilary, you really should go study with Tony Montanaro because, you have a good feeling for this. And if you're interested, that's what you should do. So then I started studying with Tony, and he really kind of broke open the world of mime and physical theater for me, because with Tony, anything and everything could be part of what we were doing. So it was illusions, but it was also, we would play with atmospheres, emotions, translating physical things into, oh my God, sorry, my I tried to turn that off. My phone was ringing. So it was
So Tony's definition of mime is not a narrow, these are mime illusions and this is all silent. Talk a little bit about that, his training.
Tony's definition of mime was theater with physical eloquence, where the body represented life in all forms, life and the world. But it had to include physical eloquence, which does not exclude the voice or music, stories. So it was very inclusive, which to me really kind of opened my mind about what that was. I studied in Paris. I was with Decru for 1 month, but it wasn't really right for me. I studied with Ella Yarosevitz, who was an ex-wife of Marceau Marceau and had worked with Tomaszewski's mime theater. That was very lyrical, which wasn't really me either, but I gave myself to it and really learned what that was. And then these other two women, Pinocchio and Marteau, who were it was a lot more character-based. There was a lot of comedy. It was edging on clown. It was also very poetic.
How does one find their niche? In other words, I mean, some people have several areas they work in. Some people are more focused on one particular thing. Like in your case, where you're doing many things, how do you distill all these opportunities and these experiences into something that is meaningful to you as a process? Like, do you still does one discard the certain things, or does one continue and add things? Like I know in my life, at one point I said I'm not going to juggle anymore. It takes too much time.
Right.
I was a pretty good juggler, but I just stopped. So
it was a struggle because I kept adding things, and I wanted to do straight theater, and I actually might do a play next fall with a character who is very physical. But I wanted to do straight theater because I really wanted to work for a repertory theater or work off Broadway. I want to do film and television. And once I started learning more about the clown world, because I did not want to be a clown for a long time. I said, no.
Why not?
People said, what did you Hilary? Because I didn't get it.
Yeah.
I didn't get it. I didn't understand the depth of clown. Growing up, the clowns were in the circus. They were birthday parties. I never saw anything that I thought was very interesting to me. And then as I got older and I started meeting the street performers in Boston, Trent was working with the Shakespeare brothers, these two guys that were very funny. Another company called Slap Happy and Fantasy Jugglers. Some of these amazing Locomotion Vaudeville. They were all in the streets of Boston, and then I saw Bill Irwin and I saw Avner and Bob Berkey. I went and studied with Bob Berkey and Fred Garbo. And I loved what these mostly guys were doing. I saw Gardy Hooter in '87. I loved what they were doing, but I thought, that's not me. If that's what contemporary clown is, new vaudeville, it's just not me. I'm not, I didn't see any women except for Gardy and Julie Goel. I didn't see myself fitting into that.
Yeah, I was going to say,
so I was
out of these guys, this white male, predominantly white, well, maybe all white male
Mhm.
energy affect you? You know, it sounds like it had an impact on you and what to find your own direction. Yeah.
Well, it really did because I kept saying no, no, no. And then I started working for the big I was working as a clown. I had a sweet little fat character and worked with some people in Boston. And I was doing that. I was doing little birthday parties. I was making money as a clown. And then I got hired with the Big Apple Circus in '87 to work in the hospitals. And the work was great. I loved the work, but I still felt like, yeah, but that's not really what I want to do. And I was doing
Sure.
parties, I was doing a
Mhm.
lot of gig work, but
This
it wasn't what I
original
wanted.
love, this original love of acting, did that bring you back to formulating a concept of clown that was close to you?
Well, it did.
It's about
It
acting,
did.
not about the
It
clown in
did.
the circus.
Right. I was doing a workshop in New York where we would go in front of casting directors and agents and present a little piece, whether it was commercial text or a monologue. So I was doing a Shakespearean monologue, and I thought, how am I going to stand out against all these other performers? I'm going to mix some physical comedy with Shakespeare. So I took a serious piece of Shakespeare, Julius Caesar, Portia from Julius Caesar, and I put in all these accidents that she was having, and she keeps getting through that monologue. And in the end, she triumphantly finishes the monologue, but her hair's come out, her dress is ripped, her heel has come off her shoe, her pearls are gone. She's a little bit high from glue, but she finishes it. She maintains her dignity or regains her dignity throughout. And it was once I had been doing that number for a couple of years that I finally said, oh, I get it. That's who I am as a clown.
Mhm.
I'm not a baggy pants bowler hat with a red nose.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not a washerwoman. I'm not all these. I am me. I am me, the Hilary who wants to be taken seriously as an actress, who wants to maintain dignity, but can't because shit happens all the time. And I finally realized, okay, when they say you have to understand who you are in order to find your clown, finally got it. It's like, I am that woman. I am that woman with
Did you
who
did you
seems
find
quite
that?
high status.
Yeah, once you found this calling, did you find that it was hard to break into the white male dominated world of clown and mime and physical? Was that a wall for you that you had to find a way to break down?
I
Karen and I
don't
talk
feel,
about this all the time.
yeah,
In fact,
I, I,
we're always this partition. I don't. I
that
guess it's over
wall.
there.
Yeah, I know that wall. Yeah. Uh, I feel like I was really fortunate in my trajectory. Once I said, okay, I'll do a clown show. I started performing it around. I was taking any opportunity that I could, even if I had to kind of pay to play. And it kept bringing more work. And, I was at a lot of festivals where I was the only woman.
Mhm.
Festivals, or they already had a woman. So I certainly didn't get into everything I applied to, but I feel like I was accepted into that world
Mhm.
relatively
What did
easily
that
once I
take?
had what was
What did that
worthy.
take? Do you
Pardon?
think to be accepted into that world? What did it take? Do you think? What did
Well,
you do, or how did you think you were perceived that was allowed that door to open, where it might be more difficult
I
for
think
someone else?
I guess I made them laugh.
Talent.
I think I made them laugh, and I made them feel something, and I wasn't a threat. I know most of
Yeah,
them, so I
that's
wasn't
interesting.
taking anybody else's place.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I think today there are a lot more women clowns who are very good, and
Yeah,
so it's going to be harder for the men to get a spot in a festival too because they have a lot of competition.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
That's a
But
good
Yeah.
point. I know that. I mean, I know back in the day there were very few visible women in mime and clown, particularly that were kind of leading groups or being soloists, but things have changed dramatically. I mean, you yourself have been participating in some all women clown festivals, right, in Europe and places like that. Yeah.
Yes, Europe, South
Yeah.
America, fantastic
You
workshop.
think that's a lack? I'm just curious about that whole process. Is you think men have become more disinterested in clown and mime? I think they have to a certain extent, and women,
I
for
don't think
example,
so.
in my early classes, private classes, back in the 70s, I always had more women students than men. So that told me that women were more adventurous and more creative, maybe in some ways, and didn't necessarily feel they had to follow you're an American man. You have to like have the 8 to 5 job. And women were always a little more open to adventure than men were, always.
Yeah,
And
but also at that time period, women had, lots of time to take classes, but they didn't get the opportunities to perform.
well, but my point,
Once
yeah,
they
I know
had their
that. The point
foot
is,
in the door and they were able to perform, I think they got a lot of respect. Like you say, Hilary, you were part and you were accepted. And the other artists, the other male or female artists, they accepted each other once they figure out you're professional, but that to actually
Right.
get people who are booking to accept women. And now maybe it's a little bit more equal footing.
I don't know. I think women have the upper hand now, which is fine. I think there's a lack of drive in
I
men
think.
these days in
Oh,
this
I
field.
know.
I think there is.
How do you feel,
I,
Hilary?
I, I see a lot of men in clown.
Yeah, but how good
There
are they?
are
That's the
awesome
question.
women in the classes, but more men performing. I think men. I think men have the guts to just get out there and try something new, try
Maybe.
something that might not be well enough rehearsed, or just try something
I don't
than
know. I
women.
disagree. I think the
I,
men
I
have
don't.
more
I,
fun.
I think women
Hilary,
have to make sure it's pretty good before they get out there.
Yeah, I disagree.
Hilary, what do you think about it age wise? Because my experience of working with older people, that they've got nothing to lose and they will do crazy funny things that maybe younger adolescents will be like a little bit not wanting to do. Do you see anything in age wise that, for instance, yourself, do you have more courage to just go out there and try stuff?
You know, I I don't know. I don't know. I think sometimes I get more and more. In some ways, I'm more fearful. I think in some
Oh,
ways, there's a lot of me that says, "Oh, fuck it," I'm just certainly in class. I am so willing to fail. I'm so willing to be bad because I know it's just part of the experience, and I don't care. As far as getting in front of people, I really don't want to be bad. That's really hard for me when I feel like I'm putting my reputation on the line when I'm
But that's
it's
good though. I
hard.
think
so
Hard.
it's
I
harder for
want
you
it.
harder for you to take.
I think in some ways it's harder in front of a bigger public.
Yeah.
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 I wonder too, we're talking about age. I wonder too, because I am getting older and I've let my hair go silver. I don't know yet if people look at me differently.
Mhm.
Uh,
you might be.
certainly this is about this earlier. You're talking about as a woman. I think I always felt like people found me funnier than they thought they would. I think they were surprised at how much they laughed during my show.
You're talking about now or in the past or both times?
In the past.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I wonder if they look at me and think, oh, she's a lot older. Is she going to be any good? Because we don't look at older people with the kind of with respect and with the idea that wow, they've been doing this so long, they must be good.
You know what though? But
I
I
think
think, yeah,
people think,
I think
oh, you might be a little the hell.
I think that younger generations, budding artists, I think that if the person is talented, I think they admire age. Actually, having getting older myself, I'm just trying to see the thermometer, the barometer of younger people that might witness what I do. I see a lot of respect if
No, I
you're,
do too.
it's, and I think that's an age old thing with artists and apprentices, so to speak, maybe apprentices, right? That are continuous by passing down knowledge from the experience to the younger
Mhm.
ones. So I think built into the process of as an aging artist, that there's some good things there that should give you courage.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
And it's my personal fear.
Right.
It took some courage a few years ago to just let my but what I realized, I think it might give it to see a life day with a silver hair woman number. This beautiful silver bun on my hair. I mean, it looks with silver hair and a silver dress in a really positive way.
What about you? Like, because it's a physical art, how do you deal with that part of being older and not as flexible? Or what changes have you made? Any?
For sure. I haven't had to make that many changes yet, but Wagner, he said, the less I do, the more I get paid.
It's true.
He had to take out some years ago. And at this point, he'll do a half an hour show. That's enough. That's enough for him. That's what I'm finding, that my stamina is still pretty good. I mean, I was working on a show with a friend directed by Aitor Basau Goodman, which pandemic, I don't know if we'll ever get to it. But we were working on dances, and I was finding my stamina. And they were saying, "Oh my God, I should be doing better." So I started doing cardio. I mean, I have to pay attention. I have to pay attention to my weight. I have to pay attention to and at least 6 weeks before a booking for a life, I have to start singing every day and go over the words, because my memory isn't as good. So I have to sing those songs, those words every day out of me, because
did you always sing? That you like to do?
I've always sung, and I've over many years, over singing lessons off and on, formed singing in front of people. I never think of myself as a singer, but an actor who sings. But
so the bottom
line
is, you're an actor. You just said it just now. So I would think you feel that the foundation of all the craft of acting, and you've taken dimension at the base of what.
And with I've been taking in physical since high school, whether it's mime or dance or any kind of the movement is always important, because I find most actors talk very well, but their bodies aren't part of the character. Actually,
curious programs and conservatories, and it's such a mystery to me why the body is so elusive for actors. I think maybe it has something to do with the way it was communicated to them in the beginning, but there always seems to be this timidity with actors. I mean, some embrace it, but so many of them are so frightened of physicality. It's so interesting to me, why and I'm not sure why that is. I think it has to be some kind of advice, some bad advice they got, or some bad feedback they got somewhere.
It also could be that in high schools, because high schools you can't put that much time into theater. High school is probably. I think about my high school work that I did, and we didn't do very much with physicality.
Yeah.
It was
the most basic sense of to be here. But a part of that I think is that USA is so concerned with sports. So when you're in high school, if you're not an athlete, you don't think of yourself as being very physical. Especially with boys. If you can't play a sport, then you're kind of pushed away. And not you're not very court. And so a lot of people that maybe were in high school and had interest in theater, if they weren't an athlete, they would feel kind of shamed in that area, which is so unfortunate. It's
right.
It does have to do with exposure to the training, both
Right.
at the high school level and then at the college level. That if you don't realize that theater has got this really the core of physicality is so important to it. That, oh my goodness! It's the gift, Hilary. It's time for your gift. Ah, yes. Did you get a package from the Mime Museum?
I did.
Bring it in.
I did. Please do not open until you are on air with the Mime Radio Show. So I can open this now?
Yes, please do. So the Mime Museum has, all sorts of different objects from mimes all around the world, but it's too crowded, so we're kind of deacquisitioning. So I don't exactly know what they sent you, but something to do with you, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Oh my. Oh, this is a United States passport.
Did you read the little card on the front? What did it say? Because that sort of tells you the exhibit number.
Okay, thank you for joining us on the Mime Radio Show. Please accept this gift, the Mime Museum souvenir number BF2HN3. This envelope contains an expired passport donated to the Mime Museum by Hilary Chaplain. She maintains that she used this passport as a backup for emergency situations only. The passport appears to be genuine. However, we could not confirm that she ever actually performed in Machu Picchu, so we're returning it as inauthentic and of doubtful provenance. Well, let's see. Wow. Oh, see, that's okay.
Speaking of traveling,
is that you? Is that a picture of you, Hilary?
Well, let me see.
Because we know you have traveled a lot. Yes,
definitely my picture.
Very nice.
An amazing picture that was taken by oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name suddenly.
Jim Moore.
It does not look like something you took at the Walgreens as your basic passport photo. That's something else.
I know his name so well. I'm not
Jim Moore. You're not thinking of Jim Moore, are you?
We'll put it into the show notes.
Speaking of traveling, what's one of the more?
Oh yeah, he's wonderful.
So many beautiful portraits.
Speaking of traveling, what is one of the more exotic or more interesting places you performed? Is there any?
I've actually been to Machu Picchu.
Yeah.
No, wait. You have performed at Machu Picchu?
I've only been. I did not perform.
The stamp is in the passport, but didn't. Maybe you just did a little mime piece on the steps of the.
I'm sure I made a joke or two.
Tell us some more about your travels.
Well,
it's an interesting place you've been. I mean, give us a good touring story, and maybe something that really affected you in a positive way, or something that was a disaster. Where in your travels have you been influenced by the light and the dark?
Oh gosh, 20 countries. I love performing in Brazil. The Brazilian audience is just so vocal and so with you. They're really fun.
Great.
In Spain, I did A Life in Her Day. Now, A Life in Her Day, which was directed by Abner Eisenberg, by the way, in 2005. In that piece, I give birth to a roll of paper towels, and I breastfeed that roll of paper towels with wadded up paper towels under my shirt. Um, and I go behind the bed, and supposedly I'm having sex there on my honeymoon, and that's how I end up having a baby. And in this country, there are audiences who there are adults who don't think this is appropriate for children. In fact, in India, I did my show for a group of school kids. Now, I don't usually do the show for big groups of younger people, but I did a big school group, and one of the middle school teachers or a parent, I think a parent was there with their child, or children out of there. And I heard about it afterwards. They took their children out because it was not appropriate. And the people who were presenting me were absolutely fine with it because they saw no problem with it. I mean, it's human life. It's life. We were all breastfed if we were lucky, you know.
Yeah.
In Spain, they don't care.
Yeah.
In
Most
Spain,
Latin
you
countries.
can do anything for anyone.
Yeah, in most
And
Latin countries, you know, the family, the kids are exposed to all kinds of things that people are frightened of here in the States, you know. Like,
That's right. That's right. We are very puritanical
we
here.
are, yes.
So that's the joy of performing outside of this country. Now in Turkey, I was at a puppet festival in Thrace. The Izmir Puppet Days, and they had us going out to all these different spaces. There's nobody there who knew how to run the lights or knew how to do anything. I was in one space. It was getting later, and I was trying to get the guy who was working there to focus a light and put sharp or to blur the edges of a Lico that was up in the rafters.
Yeah.
And he had no idea what I was talking about. I kept drawing pictures. I kept trying to make him understand that it wanted it blurry edges. And finally, I found out that he knew nothing about the equipment. And I went up there myself, pulled out the little flaps that make it blurry, and went back down. And it was what I wanted. And at that point, it was about people started coming into the theater, and I said, "What's going on?" It's only 10 of 7 or something. And they said, "Yes, the show's at 7." I said, "What? No." They had told me the wrong time. So I went dashing backstage, had to slap on my makeup and my costume, and I was ready about 2 minutes late. And I walked out and I did the show. But the other funny thing about,
do you feel that,
there's,
you know, those of us that have traveled a lot in other countries and performed, do you feel that we as from USA have missed out on maybe some fundamental growth elements that we could, as artists, that we might have received if we had been born into another country? You know what I mean?
oh yeah, so often the work that I see in other countries is much more daring.
Yeah.
As general, I sometimes think that my work is almost a little for international. Depends on what it's for. When I first took A Life in Her Day to the Melbourne Fringe Festival, I realized there just wasn't enough of an edge to it. It was a different show back then, but I felt like, I just wasn't edgy enough for the Australians. I don't know how they would react to the show now. It's different. It's still a very sweet show with a lot of in its simplicity. There is a lot of depth and a lot of heart, and people are very moved by it. I don't know what the Australians would think about it.
My theory is
that
the technology that has come in this country, and through television and movies, that it has kind of like leveled out the intelligence of an audience. I don't know, how do I say this? In other words, like television tries to meet, especially back in the day in its formative years, tried to meet all audiences, right? So I think in other countries there's less history of technology in the arts, and I think the audiences are more adventurous in those countries and more more used to seeing, the tradition of a live performer, or with the, like we say in Latin America, or Spain, the kids, are exposed to things that people don't like to expose them to here. But I think that has been a challenge for us here, is how do we bring this kind of, truthful art in all its colors to a populace where there's more censorship here, I think, in some ways, because of the almighty dollar, perhaps, you know what I mean?
Exactly. I think there are a couple of things that come into play. Number one is, in many countries around the world, there is much more funding for the arts than in this country.
Yeah.
And when when you don't have to struggle so much in your life to make money, you're more willing to be daring. It's not going to absolutely break you if you do something that's not accepted, that's not
right.
Yeah,
it doesn't
that's
well.
an economic angle.
I think the other thing is that we've always had it pretty easy in this country in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
We haven't had war. We haven't had struggles. The disparity between rich and poor is getting much point, and I think a lot of people are struggling in a very different way than we have. But I think in other countries around the world where there has been a much more of a struggle to survive, they're speaking to different subjects than we are.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to make their voices heard.
So
how do we in this country change that perception of the arts here? I mean, besides the obvious of getting more money, but how, what are some strategies to, especially after the pandemic, people aren't even going to the movies anymore much, it seems.
It's interesting you should ask that in this moment. There are some people, and Bill Bowers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bill Bowers, right. Broken Box Mime. They, Julie Proctor, and I don't know who else yet, are coming together to create a physical theater festival in New York City.
That's fantastic.
That's great.
And
that's fantastic.
The question is, what do you want to see? What do we want to see in a physical theater festival? And something I'd like to see is work that we just don't get to see here. Work that does push the boundaries more. Work that's not as safe. Because when we get to see that kind of work, it inspires us to do that kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're right. I know, and 40 years ago, there were more festivals in the USA, and they were key to the development of artists. But you're absolutely right about that. I mean, one of the reasons for the Mime, the Mime radio show was to start some kind of dialogue about, or visibility about, the physical theater arts, so they're, that's a great idea.
Yeah. And it also comes to the question of, like, why do we keep doing this? Why do we create? What is there a purpose for the theater in our culture? And specifically, is there a reason for us to do mime and clown and physical theater? I mean, have you thought about that? Like why you continue throughout your whole career to keep knocking on the door of
Wait. Sometimes I think I just want to stop and have dinner parties. And connect with people, but I guess because it is about connection. Why? I was in New York during 9/11, and a few days after that day, the New York Goofs, we all piled into our cars and we went down to Wolf Trap, West Virginia. And we were at a international children's theater festival, and these kids from around the world were already there. And so they decided, let's do this festival anyway. Even where that plane went down near the Pentagon, it wasn't all that far away. But they decided, they had some shows during the week where they brought school kids in. And on the weekend, we were all there, and we were doing our show in the woods, and we were doing our show on the main stage with Bob from Sesame, Bob McGrath from Sesame Street, who just passed away.
Yes.
And people were so grateful that we were bringing some normalcy back into their lives and some fun and joy and laughter. And For me personally, in those weeks following 9/11, there were a lot of artists speaking about the tragedy and creating work about the tragedy of that day. And I thought, oh, all these people are doing such important work, serious work about it. And here I am being a clown. And then I went, wait a minute. Here I am being a clown. Yeah. I'm bringing laughter into these people's worlds. I'm bringing normalcy back. I'm helping them find themselves again, because that's what laughter does. It helps us find ourselves. It helps us create community. It helps us communicate with each other. It helps us, we're able to see the world in a clearer way when our heart is lighter. And I realized I really had the most important work.
Mm-hmm.
And
I like that. Yeah, the laughter helps us find ourselves. That's a great quote. That's
beautiful, Hilary. Thank you for that story. That was really.
Wait a minute. It's getting. Wait, is it getting hotter in here?
What? Do you feel?
The temperature is going up.
Do you feel hot?
No. Oh! Put it out! Put it out! No, it's time for rapid fire.
Oh, yes, rapid fire.
It's time for rapid fire, Hilary.
Are you ready to get up and move a little bit?
This is a thing we haven't done for a while with our guests, but we're bringing you back in full flame.
We're giving you a chance to take a couple of risks to show us what you got.
So the conversation was going very deep, and I felt I could feel the heat rising. Yeah. And so we're going to play rapid fire. So this is how this works, if you agree. So either verbally, physically, or all together, whatever you want, you can sing, whatever. I'm going to throw out some words, and you're going to, in a snap association, reflect on those words. Like it's like, it's just a word association game. So you can do it just physically, very short, just physically, verbally, or whatever comes to mind. All right. Are you game to do this?
Class. I took James's class near the beginning of the pandemic, and I loved rapid fire. Or it wasn't rapid.
Okay.
Suggestion.
Give her some hard words. She's got experience. Yeah, okay. Make it hard.
All right. Now, are you ready? Here we go.
Okay.
Wind. Great. Submerge. Wow, there's more there. I want to see where that one goes. Yellow Ferris wheel. That's good.
More yellow. More yellow.
Karen wants more yellow. Good. Angry mythology. Angry mythology. Great. Hands. Beautiful. Age. What's around the corner? Thank you very much, Hilary. That was rapid fire, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Very good. Hey, Hilary, do you teach?
I love games.
Yeah,
I do. Thanks. I do teach.
Yeah, tell us about your teaching.
These days, I've been teaching a lot of physical comedy from a clown point of view, but physical comedy.
When you say clown point of view, what does that mean?
Right. Because when I teach, I often talk about how the stupidity of the clown, the vulnerability of the clown, the immediacy of playing with the audience. So it's from that kind of point of view, although I think that what I teach is great for puppeteers, for animators, for musicians, any kind of artist, because it gets you into your body and you understand comedy from a physical point of view instead of just a mental point of view.
And do you, is this a part of your, when you, let's say you go to perform in a festival or do a gig, do you usually do a workshop or very often?
If I'm lucky. Quite often.
Why do you say
days.
that if you're lucky?
Because first of all, I really enjoy the teaching. Second of all, I create real relationships with people. Yeah. So if I'm in a country, I get to really know some people over a week's time. And I love teaching this stuff. It's really fun to share, and it's always challenging, and I make more money.
Yeah, the thing you said about you get to know the people, and in my own experience, I found that the teaching is where the barriers really come down. And if you're in a environment in another country, that's where you really learn about their culture and their process and their way of being. It's I always felt that the artist should be a teaching artist. I always felt teaching was part of your role as a performer, because we're all here to communicate and to educate and to, enlighten and so forth, right? So
yeah, you sure do. You sure do learn more. I mean, I didn't want to teach, but
yeah. So Hilary, did you start teaching from the beginning, or was that something that was added on later on? What was your relationship?
Yeah, I taught when I was, back in my Boston days. I taught high school kids with my partner, Michael Zerthy. We were teaching mime class, mime story, physical theater. But in '96, there was a job open at NYU, and a friend of mine said, "Hilary, you should teach there." I said, "Oh, no. He said, "You should teach clown." I'm like, "Oh, you're crazy. I don't know what I'm doing enough. No way." And he said, "No, Hilary, you know enough. College kids, you absolutely." So about a week went by before I went in for my interview, and I went in and got hired. And it was, once a week for undergraduates, an elective class. And as I started to teach, I started to understand how much I did know.
Yeah.
And I'm always scared first day going into a class. I'm always a little anxious, even now. But I know it'll pass. I know as soon as I start, everything will be fine. I just have to take a breath, speak at the top of my voice, and it's seek the joy. And I will the room, I'll read the students, it will go fine, because I do know what I'm talking about. And teaching taught me that I do, and it helps me kind of explore new avenues. I really enjoy it.
What advice would you give to a young person? I have a feeling that I have a lot of experience in university settings, and I'm feeling that in the future the classic drama department will be less emphasized. And that the arts education will end up more in private studios, where it has always been, but it's going to be even more so. So universities are strapped for money. They're just de-emphasizing the arts very often, except for special schools like Juilliard or something. But if someone wanted to learn clowning now, a young person, besides being exposed, like through the festivals and things like that you mentioned, but where would one go, do you think, today to, how would one approach it? Let's put it that way. A young person, if you wanted to do mime or be clown,
there are so many clown teachers now all over the world.
Absolutely. Like therapists.
Yeah. I keep seeing names I've never heard of. This morning on Facebook, I saw somebody offering a class. I have no idea who that is. There's a guy coming to New York next weekend. Carlo, looks like Jacuzzi. And he teaches in school in Paris. I've never heard of him, but I'm taking his workshop next week. I say to young people, take every workshop you can. When you find a teacher that really speaks to you, take another workshop from them. Keep studying. You know, I teach. I'm a professional, yet I keep taking workshops when I find a good teacher. So seek them out, you know, scour the internet, travel to other countries and take these workshops.
Yeah,
They're very
good.
often not in English.
Yeah, I've noticed
Very often.
that there are so many clown teachers now. It's, you know, I'm starting to be suspicious, but mime teachers, there's less mime teachers, you know, even though mime is kind of the basis of good clowning, and certain, not, you know, just mime in general is a good basis for clowning. But
The physicality.
why do you think that is, that there's a lot of clown teachers now, particularly? Is that has something to do with the pandemic, do you think, or what?
No. No, I think just over the last 20 years, it's gotten more and more popular. And I think, you know, you said like therapists, but I think that people take clown workshops and they get so in touch with themselves, and they dare to do things they've never done.
Mhm.
And it feels so good that they talk about it to other people, and they spread the word, and people, it becomes maybe a bit of an addiction. People work once they do it once. And so, you know, we're finding it more and more in universities because it's also such a great basis for any actor. And, you know, as the years go on, people have more and more experience. And so those people with more experience are starting to teach because it's also a great way to live. I also see people who take a couple of classes and think, oh, I can teach this, which is crazy. Because
but I really,
it's one of the most difficult things to teach. And it's so simple, but it's so difficult to get it.
I really, really like what you said about the idea that even though you're a longtime performer and teacher, you still seek out classes to sort of put, like you said earlier, it sort of like gives you that chance to take a risk and to be out there and try things. And that's kind of related to another question I have for you, which is like, where do your pieces come from? Where do you get your inspiration? Because often I've found that when I get slogged down, I take a class to sort of give me that impetus to get back into the creative mode. But where do you find your inspiration?
You know, I find that classes are really helpful. You know, somebody asked me if I want to do something online, and I don't have anything to do online. And it's not until the 21st. And I almost said, you know, I'm taking a class next weekend. I'll just come up with something in that class, I'm sure. But I didn't. I gave the spot away. I said, no, I don't know. I'm not in that frame of mind for something online. I just haven't gone there. But it's been an interesting few years.
I think the online, like the online stuff was really sparked by the pandemic and people wanting to be more isolated from others for health reasons. But I don't think that's the answer. I mean, I love your thought about take workshops, but the live in-person workshop has to return because you know, it has
I've been teaching a lot more in the last year, and I have been teaching very, very little online. I just waited. But where does my inspiration, you know, I feel like I am not very prolific. I have a number of pieces that I've been doing for a long time, and they work. I do have a new piece. It's a short number. It's a Carrie. As it turns out, she's a woman who works for something like, you know, T-Mobile in the HR, and she's a karaoke winner of the month. And so she's going to perform now live karaoke in front of an audience, but she doesn't know the words well enough. And so I have a scroll paper and I give it to somebody in the audience and I have to follow it and they have to keep following me. And she has total confidence that she's doing great. But she's got this red hair and these white sunglasses. And
where did it come from? Did it come from the character or the costume? Or?
It came from a costume. It came from a costume, came from a dress. I have a classically trained actress. I have a classically trained singer, musician. And the musician piece was written because somebody said, can you do some kind of a musical number? And I thought, yeah, I'll do something. And I came up, I'm going to play the triangle with the Nutcracker because they play so little. And I'll find all these, what'll I do when I'm not playing? Well, I figured that out. So I wanted a trio of numbers. So I did a classically trained singer, and she was singing in French, but the MC would put marshmallows in my mouth to help my accent. And it sounded really good with the marshmallows full. Well, that was fun, but didn't quite satisfy. So then I thought, I don't know how I came up with it, but I've often played with pregnant characters. So I thought, I'm going to do an aria. I chose the Queen of the Night. I lip sync it, and I'm 9 months pregnant, but I insist on performing, and my water breaks during the song. I go into labor when I'm trying to lip sync. I go into labor, and then I go off stage right at the end, and you see my legs go up, and a baby flies onto stage. Well, that was a lot to that piece, but it wasn't quite. So I was still struggling to find a third number. And 2 summers ago, I took a workshop with Shannon Calcutt up at Celebration Barn. She's a Canadian clown who lives in Vegas, who's brilliant, brilliant performer and teacher and director. And so I wanted to come up with something. And so I just pulled out, I had brought a little pile of costumes, and I pulled out the dress and some sunglasses and a wig, and I put them together, and I thought, and we thought, why don't I'll try a song. So what fits this song? I thought Fever, Peggy Lee doing Fever, but I didn't know the words. So I put them on a scroll, and we discovered that's the number. And I've performed it a number of times, and each time I perform it, I discover more about the piece. I'm still workshopping it, but that's the key word is workshop.
Yeah.
What do you feel about legacy, Hilary? Do you want you to have you want to have like a giant mausoleum in the cemetery when you're done, or do you want to have a urn of ashes that is hidden away in a cupboard somewhere? Like how do you feel about that intangible thing of how art remains,
Oh, I don't know. Because of video, there's so much on video now that, like it or not, some of my best and some of my worst will be there. It always amazes me when I meet people around the world and they say, "Oh God, I've watched your video so many times," or "I use your video in my classes." So, like it or not, I guess I kind of have one.
Is video a good
It's not
thing?
really something.
You think video is a good thing for a performing artist? I mean, how do you feel about video in, let's say, clowning or mime?
I do. It's hard to capture. It can be very difficult to capture a live performance on screen, but it's great. I mean, now to be able to see people who we can no longer see live and be inspired by their ideas and their work is tremendous. So I'm all for it, really.
Yeah.
But I don't want to put my work on video for the screen audience.
Yeah.
For a general, I want it to be there for us artists.
Mm-hmm.
That's important. Whoever doesn't see me live, it's never something I've thought about that I want everyone in the world to have seen me perform.
But the live performance is where that's really your home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel what's the future for clown and mime in let's say in the USA? Do you have any thoughts about that? Are we entering another? I know the 70s and the early 80s were kind of the golden age of mime, I know, and to a certain extent good clowning, but how do you feel? Are we entering another, they always say physical theater thrives in moments of social unrest, or when there's confusion in the world. Back in the 70s, we had just come out of Vietnam, and there was civil rights, and all kinds of things were happening, which sparked a lot of that kind of art form. And the world is crazy now as we know it. Do you think there's a golden age coming, or what do we have to do to promote it? What do you think?
I think we're at a good time for
Yeah.
clown. I think it's less of a bad word than it used to be, as is mine.
Yeah.
For a long time I didn't want to say I was a clown because I was like everyone else before I understood what the art was. I thought, clown. But actually, I was doing some PT recently, and my PT guy finally admitted to me that he's afraid of clowns.
Why?
And I said, interesting, you should say that. I said, so what do you mean when you say clown? And what's the image you get? And then, I brought him around to, and we had the conversation he was sure we would have, which was me talking to him about what clown actually is and how much more there is than that scary face that he's thinking of, that he something happened and it really scared him in a moment. There is less of that, I think, because there are more and more of us and people are exposed to it in a positive way within our own communities, and our own communities kind of grow. Our audience gets bigger and bigger all the time. When the work is good, I feel like
the key, isn't it? The work has to be good. Yeah.
And there's more and more good.
For the work to be good, there has to be good teaching somewhere in the past. That's.
Yeah.
So Hilary, 3 really quick last questions. So, what is your favorite place in the world that your work has taken you?
Well, I loved being in Thailand. I always loved going back to Spain. And my new favorite, and Brazil in some ways because of my community there. And my new favorite place is Portugal now.
Great. Okay, here's another one. This is one we asked Bill Bowers because he has that big mop of hair. It's like, if your hair had a name, because you have your hair too. If your hair had a name, what would your hair's name be?
Kind of
wow.
wild something. Really.
How about marshmallow? There's that photograph on your website of you. I think there are marshmallows in front of you with your hair out like that.
Hair, marshmallows everywhere. Yeah. It's a big flop fest.
It's quite silver.
Flopsy.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Flopsy, is that what you said?
I discovered wax flopsy wax that you can put in your hair that's colored. It washes right out, so I can have like a blue streak. I should have done that for today.
Okay, last question. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh God, I guess I want to be a real clown.
Well, that's a loaded. That's a loaded.
What do I want when I grow up? I want to be
silence, lady.
I want to be free to. I want to be free of self-doubts. I want to be free of feeling that something's not enough.
Wow.
I want to be content when I grow up, and I get closer all the time.
Yeah.
That's
fantastic.
Good. Well, all that we've seen of you as a performer and teacher has been quite lovely. So from the outside, it's working.
Thanks, Hilary. This has been a great conversation.
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much for being a part of the Mime Radio Show.
Yeah. There's your passport to the future.
There's such amazing little things all through it. It's going to be really fun. How did they do this, York?
I don't know. We have some talented people on the team that get this stuff together. So.
That almost looks like the cat who's here.
Yes, it does look like your cat. I guess maybe she was traveling on your passport.
Don't talk too much, Karen. Don't say too much.
Thank you, Hilary.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Hilary. That was it, ladies and gentlemen. The opening for the debut of season 4 with Hilary Chaplain. Check her workout in the classroom or on the stage. You won't be disappointed. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.